This is my 3-year-old filly Goose, and this is the first time that I've saddled her. She has been in the round pen 3 times in her life, and the first 2 times were actually last year in the summer. And I only had her out for about 15 minutes or so before I went and got the saddle because she was progressing through everything so well. She really retained everything that I had taught her last year. She was turning in to look at me and change direction. And everything that I go through, she checked out with flying colors, and she did great. So we went ahead and progressed to this. As you can see, she's already had the saddle pad on. I took it and rubbed her with it and threw it on her back and took it off several times, and then let her just carry that around for a few minutes, and that didn't bother her at all. So I grabbed the saddle. You can see I let her lick it and sniff it, and she was chewing on it at one point. And I pick it up, and I'm going to just do the same thing. I'm going to let her look at it, and right there she's licking on the fenders, and she chews on it here and there. And I just want her to be really comfortable. I'm about to strap a big dead cow on her back, and I want her to be as comfortable with it as possible. And here I just swing it a little bit and let her see it move. And I set it up on her back and then take it right back off. I want to try and get it off before she has a chance to think it's something to be worried about. Each time I'll leave it on a little bit longer. I toss it up there, wiggle it, and then yank it off again. And right here you can see she gets really curious and she wants to smell it again, so I'm going to let her do that. For saddlings, I really try to let my colt just tell me when they're ready for the next stage. If they want to look at something, I'm going to let them sniff it and chew on it and do whatever they want and just let them feel really comfortable about the whole experience. I do the same thing on the right side. When I am getting ready to actually saddle my colts, I always saddle them from the right side when I'm going to let down cinches. That way, when it's going to stay on their back and I have to switch eyes and walk around them, I only have to do that once. I'm going to let down my cinches and adjust everything from the right, make sure it's as close as possible to being correct. And that way I only have to move around the horse one time. That lessens my risk of having the horse jump on top of me if they get scared at one point or another. And I had a friend over this morning, so I'm talking to her. She's standing over at the rail. She's just out of view. And I was explaining this whole process to her as I was going through it. And Goose actually did great. And once I have all of my cinches adjusted, I'm going to go ahead and step around in front of her, and I try and keep everything really relaxed in these early saddlings. I don't want the horse thinking there's anything to be worried about. I'm just cautious and really paying attention and watching how my horse is handling everything when I'm getting ready to step around him. You can see she's pretty relaxed. That head's down and she's just swinging her tail at the flies, and she's really not nervous about any of it. And there I just step around her kind of quick and just clean and walk up and rub her shoulder. If you see, she stepped across like she thought she needed to follow me, and I just put my hand up and blocked her and waited for her to put that foot back. And when I do it my latigos, I have it looped and tied so that when I untie the wrap that's on it, it's looped up so that when I pull my cinch around, it'll pull out cleanly and I don't have to fumble with the strap a whole lot. And right here, I just reached under and grabbed my cinch, and I'm just kind of pulsing it against her belly and letting her feel that before I actually put my latigo through it, and then I just let go and rub her. And I'm just going to let her think about that for a second. And here I go ahead and run my latigo through the buckle, but I'm not going to wrap it into the D-ring on the saddle again. I'm going to hold that strap. This way, if anything happens and she gets scared, I can let go of that, and I should be able to get her shut down relatively quickly. But if not, because it's not looped through again, if she has to get away, I can relax and know that if that saddle goes to slip off of her, that everything's going to pull loose and she can get away from it. And right there, I'm putting a little bit more pressure on it and holding it, and then giving it back when she relaxes. And she's just curious about it. You see, she's sniffing that strap, and she just kind of wants to see what's going on. And then here she takes a couple of steps, and I just hold the latigo. I don't really apply more pressure, and I don't take it away because I don't want her to associate that pull to her moving her feet. I want her to stand and relax when that's on her belly. And then when she ends up taking a couple of steps, once she stands still is when I'm going to release it just a little bit and let her relax and think about everything. So right there, she came around and sniffed it again. And so I'm going to go ahead and actually cinch her up. And at this point, I'm committed, and now I want to get things done in a fast but still relaxed manner. And I don't want to pull this cinch really tight. I'm only going to pull it snug enough that if she moves, that the saddle's not going to fall on her side or get under her belly and scare her. I don't want this to end up real tight because that causes a ton of problems in itself. So it's just enough that it's kind of hugging her belly, and it'll keep everything in place if she gets scared. And right there, I just take up the very last bit of the slack, and I can still very easily get my hand underneath that cinch. But she's got a pretty decent wither, so I'm not worried about it rolling or doing anything too crazy. And here I'm rubbing her belly because I've got to reach under and get that rear cinch also. And letting her know that that's coming, and I just do the same thing, and I hold it against her belly and give it back a couple of times before I actually buckle it. And now that I have everything done, I go back and I'm just going to double check that front cinch and make sure that I've got the tie done on it and tuck that away. And especially with how relaxed she is, I'm going to go ahead and just take the halter right off of her head and let her figure this out on her own. That way, if she wants to turn her head and smell the saddle, she can. You see here, she starts to follow me a little bit, which is fine. And she actually followed me for a couple of minutes. I just cut it out because it was a lot of just walking in a little circle. But you can see right there, once she was moving a little more freely, I went ahead and pointed her off towards the rail and asked her to start going around me. One thing to be careful of is when your horse is being that hooked onto you, is if that saddle grabs them and scares them, that they don't jump on top of you. I want my horse to look to me for help. I don't want her to try to climb on top of me to get help. You see, she's really not worried about it at this point. She walks around really good. I don't want to rush her. If she's comfortable walking, then I'm going to just let her do that. I just want her this to be her day and let her carry that saddle and feel comfortable. And so I'm not going to pressure her here in the beginning. And then here I'm going to step in front and ask her to turn, and she looks at me, comes across the pin, goes back in the other direction just from a point, and continues walking around. And you can see she's really relaxed. She's got that tail lifted just slightly. She doesn't have her tail clamped down against her butt. She's pretty relaxed, and she's walking really freely. Her stride's nice and long, and she's moving her head up and down, side to side. And so at that point, I went ahead and asked her to trot. And you see there, she turns her ears back. She's listening to that saddle move around. And there was a couple times she got a little quick and she got worried, and then she just continued trotting and relaxed really nicely and just cruised around the round pen for me. I was really, really happy with her today. And we reverse directions again, and she continues trotting around, real relaxed and soft. And now she's really not even worried about listening to that saddle. She's got an ear on me, and she's going around really good. I step in front and turn my shoulder to her. At this point, I'm not really going to walk away to draw her to me because there's always a chance that that saddle might all of a sudden scare them, even though it's been on for a while. And so I'll step backwards instead of turning around and walking away. I just want to be able to see what they're doing so I can get out of the way if they get scared and decide that they need to take off running. And here, I just let her walk around for a minute. Ask her to jog. I went and opened the gate because my round pen is actually in my arena, so I opened up one of the panels to give her a lot of room. I'm not going to rush her or anything. I'm just going to let her walk through there and turn her loose in the arena and left her out there for a while for her to just pack that saddle by herself. And here I went back out a little bit later and moved her around. And actually, she did start bucking when she was out there at one point. She went down one side of the arena and she made a turn and she came about halfway back up. She didn't grunt or roar or anything. She just kind of humped her back up and wanted to buck a little. And halfway up the other side, she broke into a lope and just really nicely cruised around and didn't buck again. I was really impressed with her. You see, she relaxes and stretches out, lopes, trots, and played around. And when I was done, I brought her back to the round pen and I pulled the saddle off. I left everything right there on the ground and let her sniff it and play with it. And there we see her picking up the saddle pad. And shortly after that, I took her out of the round pen and cleaned her up. She did really, really good today.